I do remember the doors going from like open to closed, all the dressing room doors. There was tension, and I knew that. You know, I was a kid, and I knew that.
They offered me this really bad deal in the third season to, I think, sort of put me in my place. So I said no. You took my career away of 30-something years. You just went too far.
So it looks like the drama between Will Smith and his Fresh Prince of Bel-Air co-star Janet Hubert is not over after all, and Tatyana Ali recently spilled some fresh tea on just how vicious Will was to Janet and sabotaged her career. Janet has been very outspoken about the way Will mistreated her, and she publicly called him an egomaniac. Although Will apologized to Janet in 2020 during an episode of Red Table Talk, we're now hearing that this apology may have just been a PR stunt and that Will used his situation to promote himself and his wife's show. And now Tatyana Ali, who played Will's cousin Ashley Banks on Fresh Prince, is speaking out on this situation, and she revealed just how badly Janet Hubert was treated by Will. But did Tatyana actually witness Will Janet, and was Will's apology to Janet just a PR stunt? Let's get into it.
I heard when Janet said that. I know that other people have said that about her. I've seen that in social media, but I didn't know that she felt that way.
It's no secret that Janet Hubert, the original and Vivian from the iconic 90s sitcom The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, had a nasty and highly publicized feud with Will Smith for almost 30 years, and while Will claimed the feud was over after he apologized to Janet in 2020, it looks like there's more than meets the eye, and allegedly Will and his wife Jada still can't stand Janet because she publicly exposed their narcissistic behavior. So to give you some context, Janet Hubert played in Viv for the first 3 seasons of Fresh Prince, but when season 4 premiered in September 1993, fans were shocked to see that Janet had been replaced by Daphne Maxwell Reid. No clear explanation was given at the time, other than rumors about the so-called creative differences, but then the situation took an ugly turn when Will started slamming Janet publicly, and he basically launched this theory that Janet's big ego is the reason she was fired in 1993. Will went on an Atlanta radio show and claimed that Janet wanted to be the main star. I can say straight up that Janet Hubert wanted the show to be the Aunt Viv of Bel-Air show. Will said she's mad now, but she's been mad all along. But as Janet later told Will when he finally apologized in 2020, labeling someone as mad and difficult in Hollywood, especially a black woman, is a kiss of death. What's even more messed up is that Janet wasn't being difficult at all, and Will made up this narrative just because Janet wasn't a fan of his problematic humor. Janet later revealed that she made the decision to leave the show after the producers drastically reduced her role and offered her a humiliating deal with just 10 weeks of work, and also told her she couldn't work anywhere else.
Will, make no mistake. This video is for you, directly. I will not go to my grave feeling that questions have been unanswered or misconceptions of me that you put there have never been dealt with. Nowhere did it ever say I was fired. The only person who ever said that, sweetie, was you. The vomit that you spewed, I still reek of.
Of course, it was impossible for Janet to survive on 10 weeks of work without any side gigs. At the time, she was the breadwinner in her household and provided for her newborn son and her now ex-husband James Whitten, who was also abusive, so she had no choice but to turn down the offer they gave her. Janet later said this was the producer's way of putting her in her place, and they basically set her up to walk away so they could blame it all on her attitude. But why would they do that when the audience loved Janet as Aunt Viv? Well, you guessed it, Will was the issue all along, and he was the one whose ego cost Janet her career. Apparently, Will was so full of himself that it bothered him when Janet didn't laugh at his jokes in between takes. Will had to have the spotlight on him at all times, so between scenes he would crack jokes with the audience and other people on set. Janet, however, a Juilliard-trained actress who's also 12 years older than Will, preferred to focus on her work, practicing her lines and preparing for the next scene. However, the bigger issue was that Will's jokes were colorist, and Janet just couldn't stand there and laugh at Will mocking dark-skinned women. She told Black America Web in 2010, "I was a dark-skinned African-American mother, and Will used to tell the 'you're so black' jokes to the audience before the show, and at one point I came out and stopped him. He didn't understand how unbelievably disrespectful that was to women like me, but Will took this personally and started boothing Janet, and of course the producers took his side because they couldn't risk losing him as the star of the show. Meanwhile, Will also managed to turn other members of the Fresh Prince cast against Janet. In 2009, Alfonso Ribeiro, who played Carlton Banks, dissed Janet during his stand-up show, telling the audience he was crazy. Shortly after, Will shared a photo of what he called a Fresh Prince reunion without Janet as the original Unveils. When TMZ asked Janet to comment on this, she said he's still a egomaniac and has not grown up. This constant reunion thing will never ever happen in my lifetime unless there's an apology, which he doesn't know the word. But Janet didn't just have words for Will. She also later came for his wife Jada when she tried to rally black actors to boycott the 2016 Oscars. The nominations were released a few days before Martin Luther King Jr. Day, and Jada used this opportunity to call it the Academy Awards, suggesting that people of color should boycott the Oscars because the Academy has failed to recognize their artistic accomplishments. However, multiple industry figures, including Chris Rock and Janet, claimed the real reason Jada and Will were boycotting the Oscars was because Will wasn't nominated for the movie Concussion. Janet then posted the video calling out Jada for being toned up.
Girlfriend, there's a lot of going on in the world that you all don't seem to recognize. People are dying, our boys are being shot left and right, people are hungry, people are starving, people are trying to pay bills, and you talk about some actors in Oscars. I seem to remember at option time coming to you and saying, you know what, Will, you're the star of the show. Why don't we all get together? And with you, maybe we could get a little raise. Maybe the network, since you know the show is such a hit and you being the star of the show, your influence would help us greatly, like they did on Friends, like white shows do. Remember that? Do you remember that? Because I do. And your response to me was, my deal is my deal and y'all deal is y'all deal.
At the time, Will stayed silent on Janet's comments, but fast forward to 2020, and he suddenly decided it was time to apologize. However, a lot of people felt the timing was suspicious, and they speculated Will was just doing damage control for Jada after the whole entanglement situation. Plus, he made himself look like the good guy for organizing a new Fresh Prince reunion, this time with Janet. Janet and Will had a conversation on a special episode of Red Table Talk, and Janet revealed just how badly he suffered because of Will's actions.
We lost our house. I lost everything. Reputation, everything. You took all that away from me. With your words. You know, words can kill. You know those words, calling a black woman difficult in Hollywood is the kiss of death. Somebody smashed a cookie in my son's face and said, your mother is a... People send me hateful Instagrams. Aren't you dead yet? I love Will. Why don't you just die?
Will then apologized and claimed he didn't know better because he was young and didn't know the power of his words. It was all way too far on my end. But a lot of fans felt Will's apology didn't seem sincere, and they pointed out that he spent almost 30 years publicly gaslighting Janet and then used her pain and suffering to sell another Fresh Prince reunion. The worst part is that no one took Janet's side during this whole time, and all the cast members either stayed silent or supported Will's narrative about Janet being difficult.